So there's a relatively well-known story, one that probably has several different versions to it on who you're listening to say it. But I'll give my version of it that I heard from my home pastor about, it's been 18 years now. So it goes like this. There was a priest who invited over one of his friends from the local area who was a Protestant minister. And the guy came over and they were walking through the church to get to the rectory, and the Protestant minister, recognized that the priest genuflected before he went before the tabernacle. And he goes, I've always wanted to know why you Catholics do that. And the priest goes, it's relatively simple. We believe that that's God in there, right? That Jesus is in there. And he goes, where? He goes, well, in the tabernacle, right? That we have the sacrament called the Eucharist, and the Protestant minister goes, yeah, I've heard of that. So the priest goes through and he describes what it was all about, and he goes, and so we believe that that's actually the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. And the Protestant minister looks at him and goes, okay, I don't. And the priest goes, okay, can I ask why? The Protestant minister looked at him and said, because if that was God, and I really believe that that was God, why would I ever leave? And I think that story brings out a good fact, a good point, that most of us, myself included, don't give God the respect that is his due whenever we come in to see him. We have God on earth. The same Jesus that walked with the disciples is actually present with us right now. And yet, all too often, we don't always act like it. Right? And so, the theme for the Eucharistic revival for our diocese is this, right? It's, this is my body. He said it, I believe it. So that line, this is my body, comes from, right, the Last Supper. We've heard it all many times, right? And it happened that while he was at table with them, he took bread, and then he took the bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which will be given to you. Do this in memory of me. Right? He said, this is my body. We can go to John's gospel with the bread of life discourse, where Jesus comes out and he flat out says, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you do not have life within you. And in that same one, he says, right, I am the bread of life. You tie the two together and it's very clear, right? This is my body. He said it, and so I believe it. And then we hear in today's gospel something that's very, very similar. And it happened that while he was at table with them, he took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. And with that, their eyes were opened and they recognized him. But he vanished from their sight. So at Emmaus, did he say the same words, right? This is my body, do this in remembrance of me. I mean, it's not written down, but it's kind of implied that he did. And I always found it interesting that there's that last bit of it. But he vanished from their sight. It didn't say that he actually left, just vanished from their sight, which I always took, especially once I started thinking about it, that he was still there, just in what looked to be the bread and the wine. That was one of the first masses that ever happened, was that during that journey to Emmaus. The real presence in the Eucharist is something that can be very hard for us to accept, to get, to believe. Because what we see looks like bread and wine. What we taste tastes like bread and wine. I don't think any of us here have ever actually been blessed enough to see a Eucharistic miracle in and of itself. Some may have, but most of us never will in our lifetime. To see the Eucharist actually transform into flesh or blood. And yet we believe, at least intellectually, that it really is the real presence of God. And what do we mean by that? We mean that Jesus is substantially present in the bread and the wine. Sorry, I'm quoting from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Might be a little dry. That which makes a thing what it is the substance, right? That's what we mean by a substantial change. The thing that literally makes it what it is changed, not the accidents. The accidents are another technical term meaning what something looks, tastes, smells, all that kind of stuff. The substance is what it actually is. And so this presence is called real, by which is not intended to exclude the other types of presence as if they could not be real too, but rather that it is present in the fullest sense. That is to say, is it a substantial presence, meaning the substance is changed, by which Christ, God and man, makes himself wholly and entirely present. At least intellectually, this is what we should accept and hold. That the Eucharist is truly Christ, wholly and totally. That's of a core of our faith. So, to wrap it up again, the theme. Why do I choose to believe? I've never seen a Eucharistic miracle. All the Eucharistic miracles I've heard about have come from online or somebody else saying it. I have never actually had any personal proof of it. So why do I choose to believe in it? He said it, and so I believe it. He said, "This is my body, this is my blood." Hence, I believe. And I continually ask him for the grace to live it more clearly in my life, day by day. And I encourage you to do the same.